Welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello and welcome to the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast, episode 54. My name is Ian.
And I'm Nikki.
How are we doing today?
I'm alright, it's
How
cold.
you doing?
How you doing?
So yeah, we're recording mid-June.
It's freezing.
What's going on?
Oh, it's so wet and cold. I've got a continual cold.
Well, you just sounded so miserable then.
I am miserable. It's like you said, it's June.
You sounded so northern then.
It's rubbing off on me.
What, sorry? Let's move on quickly. This episode, we have got an interview with the lovely Junko Mizuno, which is coming up shortly.
Yes.
We have Mike continuing his look at Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know why I said it like that.
Dungeons and Dragons.
That's better. Dungeons and Dragons.
I will stroke my white beard.
I'm a dwarf. I'm saying that like I'm not a nerd. I'm saying that like I'm abusing Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah,
we're not.
Yeah, I play with little men left, right and centre. Again, let's move on.
Lord, that sounded so bad. He means plastic men. He means Warhammer. Jeez.
Tom has reviewed Russell Mark Olsen's The Black Iris, and Pete has spoken to Mixam, not Maxim. Maxim's at Lads Maxim's at Lads Magazine from the 90s.
Oh no, you've really hit a new low, haven't you?
Pete speaks to Adam from Mixam about their printing range in the States. So we'll get to that shortly. But first, we've got a few books to review.
We have.
So, shall we start with Junko's first, since she's on the show this episode?
Yes.
So, Junko does. I mean, this is where the balance comes in. It's sort of a balance of what we talked about in your comic of what is a comic, what is a picture book.
Yeah.
There's sort of a cross there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think anything is anything.
But people like to define.
Yeah, well, maybe we don't want to be defined.
Is anything.
There shouldn't be a definition, should there?
Anything
is anything. That is deep and meaningful.
You are up there with the scholars.
You know it. Plato, Aristotle.
I'm glad you're
Nikki.
naming them because I couldn't remember any names. But it doesn't become graphic novel, so we'll just say that. We'll say it's a graphic novel. Yeah. Because the term graphic novel means nothing as well, so we'll go with that.
We should not put anyone into any slot.
No. But I suppose if I was to look at this, I would say picture book because it doesn't have word balloons. That to me.
Really? You've put this down to word balloons?
That's my meaning. There's nothing negative either source, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, it's
I don't have any words in mine, so you know.
There you go. What is yours? It's just a book of art.
I will hit you. Throw things at you from here.
I'm trying to find you some blurb to read.
I don't think
quiet.
If there is any, it's at the front.
There is no blurb. So
first page?
Junko does, which we talk about in the interview, very stylized,
psychedelic inspired.
Yeah, it's a mixture of so many different creators and artists that she's seen throughout the years, and she's then developed her own style. I was about to say, give me a chance.
Well, you know,
developed her own style from that, which she talks about, and it's like I say, it's just it's candy to the eyes.
Yes, yeah, I really think that the 60s have inspired her a lot in that art style. You know, I had a 60s kids book, and the art and the swirls that she puts in there, I had in my kids book. So she's taken a lot of inspiration from that, and I like it.
So this is one of her newer books, Ravina the Witch, which follows the story of a young girl, a young witch, who is kicked out of her home. I'm trying to remember now, it's a few weeks since I read it. Kicked out of her home, and then she has to travel, find a new home essentially, and she finds a village, and then things happen within that village.
Don't give too much.
No, but it is sort of a story that you sort of expect from a witch. It tells that tale of being ostracised and treated differently, just because of your beliefs, I suppose, is a way to look at it. But you pick it up and you think, oh, this is a kid's book.
No, it's not a kid's book.
It's not a kid's book.
No.
And I think that's a whole style throughout her range. She's got a very cartoony, psychedelic imagery throughout, but it is definitely not for kids.
No.
Which makes it interesting reading. Mm-hmm. Really enjoy her style and enjoy what she creates. And I'm interested to see the new books, which she talks about her old work being redone.
Being reprinted, isn't it? Yeah.
I'll certainly be interested to see that when it comes out later in the year.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so definitely check it out. Check her style out. Check her little models.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah.
That are really gorgeous. And enjoy the interview shortly on the show. Now, the next two books we're going to talk about have got, I feel, a very, very... let's say that again. They're linked.
Yes.
They're very similar in their outcome.
In their subjects.
But not in
their art and
how they're
storytelling.
talking about it. So the first one, The Book of Sarah by Sarah Lightman. Give us some blurb.
I will do. The Book of Sarah is missing from the Bible, so artist Sarah Lightman sets out to make her own, questioning religion, family, motherhood, and what it takes to be an artist. This is a deeply subversive... I can't even speak myself today. This is a deeply subversive visual autobiography from the Jewish heartlands of North London.
London town.
It's not... No, we don't talk like that in London.
Everybody does.
All right, cool, blimey, governor.
London town.
Mary Poppins.
Exactly, you see. So Sarah's, as the name suggests, Book of Sarah, she sort of utilised her religious past.
Yes.
To do a chapter of the Bible, basically based on her in some sort of way. That's sort of the basic premise.
Yeah.
And her life.
Yeah.
Of feeling, of not knowing who she is.
Yeah.
I think that's basically what it is. She's brought up within the religion.
Yeah.
That's her life. Her parents are very heavy on top of her. And she feels controlled in some ways, even though she's not being directly controlled.
Yeah. And it's that not knowing that something's missing from your life as well as she goes on, which I think comes across in the art. You know, she misses parts out. Yeah. Because she doesn't know who she is.
And even when she finds out the fact that she's missing, it's then working out how you become yourself.
Yes.
I suppose.
Yeah. And how hard it is. Because obviously she's suffering from depression in this as well, isn't she? So you've got all of that to take on board.
The art is all pencil drawings throughout.
There's some oils in there.
But it's all slightly different styles. There's no sort of, it's not like a standard book, which is one style all the way through. Yeah. It's flits and flats, changes.
Yeah, but it changes with her, I think.
And it's more just like pictures and then the story rather than...
Yes, yeah, it's snapshots of those moments she's talking about. Yeah, you particularly like the glass half full pages.
There's a couple of them, glass where she tells snippets of a story. Is it glass half full, glass half empty? And somebody who isn't depressed and feeling that way would probably look at the stories and think different.
Maybe,
that makes sense.
Yes, yeah.
You know, it's how you look at it.
Well, it's that thing, isn't it, of how you see your glass, yeah.
So it's certainly an interesting book, a bit challenging to sort of read, not coming from that past. Challenging perception.
Yes.
In some ways, of religion in particular.
Yeah. I found it quite heavy, I must admit. It's definitely a grounded book. So, and it made me feel, I felt quite sad for her, really, as I read it.
I think it's hard to read at first as well.
It is, yeah. I think only because of the subject and
it's quite, like you say, heavy is probably a good word to use.
Yeah, it's a very mature book. It takes you along with her. And it's a hard read because of that, only because of the subject. But
as you get towards middle onwards, it sort of changes tone. It becomes a bit lighter as she's finding life a little bit easier.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely it's a very deep book, and I think you need to take your time reading it.
So, like I say, I think the main premise to me was of her finding herself, and the next book we're going to talk about as well. I feel follows that sort of route in some ways. So we are, let me just load up the iPad. Stand in Your Power by Racheal Smith. Get that blurb.
Stand in Your Power is a collection of autobio comic strips that comic creator extraordinaire Racheal Smith made after going through a breakup and attempting to get on with her new single life. The comic deals with loneliness, figuring out who you are, moving on, dating, friendship, depression, love, and many other super relatable things.
So this is sort of a follow-on from Rachel's previous book, which was all about her depression, and how she deals with it, and the animal, the dogs that are there. And it all starts with, she's very open about splitting up with her partner, and how that can then affect somebody with depression, with anxiety. You know, immediately it's, I'm not worthy, I'm worthless.
Well, that's because Sarah hit that as well, didn't she? She went back home and didn't move out of her mum's for a year, wasn't it?
So it's all comic strips, so it is a follow-on story.
Yeah.
But each page is its own little individual.
Yeah,
story.
Again, it's taking, like, I've just listed all the things out of there, so it takes those.
So I was sort of watching you reading this, and there was select pages that you just went, yeah,
yeah, I understand.
So what sort of points came out?
Well, she is, like you say, it's super relatable. It really is. Everyone's been in these situations. You don't have to have depression or anything else. We've all been in these situations. We've been dumped. We've been the dumpy. You know, we've all been there. And we've all looked back and gone, oh, that wasn't good. Oh, that was bad. I mean, you even said to me, we've both been there.
We have.
Both been there, and it's horrible. And, you know, if you've got the added thing of depression on there, I think the self-harm section in there, I think was very powerful. And I could relate to that. So, yeah, I liked that. And I like the fact she said, I've put a green board around this, so if you're not comfortable reading about self-harm, flick on to where it goes white again. Yeah. And I think she's very kind to her readers that way.
Aware.
Yes.
Self-aware and aware of everything else that's going on around her, that other people, I suppose she's aware that other people are in the same situation.
Yes, yeah.
Which is important.
Yeah. And you can relate, and you have everyone sat there and gone, I'm not worthy. Oh God, what am I doing? And all this. We've all been there, but it's nice to see someone else has gone through it as well. But obviously, like I say, you've got the added thing with the depression in there with the black dog, old Barky. But you've also got the new white dog in there as well.
And I think, as I say, Book of Sarah is about finding yourself. I think this is about finding yourself. When you split up from somebody, or in my situation, I'll be quite open about it, finding myself whilst I was in a relationship and realising that wasn't where I wanted to be.
Yep.
I think everybody, unless you're really lucky, an amazing person, everybody has to come across it. Well, you can either give in, or I'm sure there is people out there who from day one know who they are.
Oh, yes, yeah.
You know, and they lead their life how they're going to lead it. Nobody's changing what they want to do, and they do it, and they're happy all the way through their life. And bloody hell, lucky buggers.
Yeah, the rest of us, bundles of neurosis.
The rest of us have to deal with our teenage years, finding who we are. As with me, I didn't.
No,
and then I was trapped, and I was stuck in a life that I wasn't quite happy with, and then it gets to a point where it's like, sod it. It's going to be me.
Yeah.
And if the people who are there don't fit in or don't want to fit in with that, sod off.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I want to do.
You do have to wait for that strength, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a natural thing that comes, is it?
And with Racheal, she was forced into that.
Yes.
And then you've got it. But then that comes with the, let's say, depression, the weeks, months, years, some depending on the individual, of pain and feeling unworthy, and then maybe not bumping into somebody who they're going to be with, and that makes you feel even worse, and it's just an ever-ending cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, so they're both actually very similar books. They just tackled it in, like, the Book of Sarah in a very a deep and grounded way, and Racheal, I guess you
want to say simplified, but it's not simplified.
No, I related more with Rachel's one, I think, because I could see myself there more.
There's no religion in the way in Rachel's. It is purely a girl, a woman dealing with
not to, that
issues.
Doesn't take it away from the Book of Sarah.
Oh, no, but it's more, certainly for us, religion, we don't understand how that would affect lives.
I haven't been brought up in a religious household. You know.
We're more how Racheal, you in particular, with anxiety and so forth, more like how Racheal would deal with things and so forth.
But I think they both tackle the same type of issues very well.
Yeah.
And I think they're very good books.
And alongside anxiety, to me, they're very important.
Yeah.
To help people and show people that everybody, or there's a good percentage of people all dealing with these problems.
Yeah, it's well, we live in that Instagram world now, don't we, where everyone puts their best things forward. But no, every single person, it's a mask on everyone, and the rest, you are inside. You're all of this. You're parts of a Beccassette, you're parts of Racheal Smith. You're all of we're all of this. And we're just trying to make your way through and try and find a bit of happiness. And that's all anyone's trying to do, isn't it?
So as we record this, next weekend we've got Macpow in Macclesfield.
Yes.
Rachel's going to be there.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll get an interview about,
Or
have a chat about this.
as well.
You want a badge?
I like, because I've got the grumpy cat drinking wine badge, because that is me. By the time I get to like Wednesday in the week, really, I'm grumpy and need a glass of wine.
Something I'm going to talk to her about. We had her on the show last year, and we were fairly, I could say, new to interviewing, but we're sort of learning. And I really held back from talking about the issues that she presented in the book. And I found it quite hard to interview because in my mind I was pulling myself away from something that probably should have been discussed and brought up because that's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel it's hard, you don't want to push people.
Oh, no, because you don't know how they're
But at the
feeling.
same point,
yeah.
if you've written a book on a topic,
Yeah.
then that's there to be discussed and opened. I think that's something I've learned.
I think you have to mould it to each individual
It's
creator,
challenging.
don't you?
And I'm looking
Like
forward
if you
to...
came up to me and went, I need to talk about anxiety, I'd be like, yeah, right. But you could talk to someone else who that actually is quite
But
very
now,
personal to them. And
if I never knew you and you'd written Anxiety to me now, as I've learned over the few years, I would discuss it with you because you're promoting a book about that topic.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to talk about it in a way that you feel comfortable, you know?
Yes, yeah. As long as you don't push someone. I
Oh,
think
no. So it's just sort of, it makes me think that there's a new book coming out and the fact we get to have a chat over next week. And it's that learned experience of ourselves of how we deal with topics and subjects that aren't straightforward.
But isn't that good, isn't it? It's
it's a learning.
doing things like that and reading these tough books, then it opens all that up to everyone. And I think the more you talk about it, the better anyway.
And the more we've done this, we've seen how many people have these.
Yeah, we've all got it.
There's so many books out there.
All of us.
It's, it's a scary old world.
I think it is, isn't it? And we just have to band together and not be nasty.
You mean like the UK generally, is it?
I think I'm just gonna live in a hole.
I mean, he's given self-made heroes so many comic book ideas. Right, so we'll leave it for now. The interview with Junko coming up, and our lovely contributors, which I'm going to say thank you to again. I've said it before, but I put a post up this week on Twitter about
You did, I saw that. The love post,
just,
as I like to call it now.
No, it was explaining who we are.
Who are we?
Who knows? So thank you again to Mike, Pete and Tom for the work they do.
Yeah.
They probably work much harder than we do.
Not supposed to tell them.
No,
that.
I know.
You sit and edit it all together, dear.
I do, that's a good point.
Yeah,
actually.
and I just like make a cup of tea.
Okay, they probably work much harder than you do.
Everyone works much harder than I do.
Right, we'll be back after this.
Mike's Mutterings.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike's Mutterings. And today's ramblings will be part 2 of 3, where I'm shamelessly going to combine my two great loves and present to you the complete history of Dungeons & Dragons and comics. In the first part, I gave a history of the beginnings of D&D comics, how the game creators TSR joined a successful partnership with DC to create original works, and then the subsequent destruction of that partnership and the eventual fall of TSR. Between the 80s and 2010, there were lean times and abundant times, and the most successful series were those adapting the best-selling D&D novels such as Dragonlance. Unfortunately, there was also a plethora of publishers that took the license but failed to hit the mark. In this part, the story is simple and straightforward. IDW picked up the license from the new owners of D&D, Wizards of the Coast, and from 2010 onwards they have produced a wonderful series of original stories, mostly set in the world of Forgotten Realms. And I'm going to take you through what they've published to date. IDW began with giving us a core series of original works simply called Dungeons & Dragons. It debuted in August 2010 and it ran for 15 issues and completely reinvigorated the entire D&D comic line. Writer John Rogers is a D&D player. He even wrote gaming content for Wizards of the Coast. But he also has a great comic CV. He co-created The Blue Beetle for DC and wrote Cthulhu Tales whilst at Boom Studios, amongst others. Oh yeah, and he also dabbled in a bit of screenwriting on the side. You know, nothing major, he just happened to co-write Catwoman and Transformers. And he's also a comedian, and his past comedy writing was the cherry on top that made him the perfect choice for this important relaunch. He managed to write the first real-feeling original D&D comic in my mind. It felt like an adventure someone would actually write, gather their friends and sit round a table and play. The adventuring party itself felt like a cohesive bunch of players and acted like people playing their characters, like blockbuster Hollywood action heroes with quips and put-downs included. We're basically introduced to a fighter called Adric, who's the default leader, who, just like a player would really, approached each situation thrown at them with a plan A, a plan B, goes all the way to plan X, and then actually realises they're really not going to manage this. Bree Three Hands is the halfling rogue. She's agile, dexterous, backstabby, and a hardcore criminal. She does eventually do the right thing and constantly saves the party. Typically stoic dwarf Carl Unduran is the moral centre of the party and an accomplished poet, although dwarven poetry is an acquired taste. Tish Swanhart is a tiefling warlock, a horned infernal whose magic derives from a pact made with powerful entities. Her alignment is a little less defined and harbours many, many secrets. Finally, we have Elf Ranger Varys, who provides the artillery. An expert tracker and wilderness guide, only he prefers the interior of a tavern. And cats. He loves cats. To me, these bunch of reprobates, just like the characters any of my players would come up with, backstories and all. And that was deliberate. The very first comic started mid-battle, and the characters' interactions between themselves are just so D&D. There is even a lovely fan Easter egg of a huge stone idol with a single huge red gem in its eye socket, which is a nod to the original AD&D First Edition Player's Handbook. The writer brings a nice, natural and sarcastic sense of humour into the characters' voices. He also manages to centre stories around D&D tropes, such as adventures start in a tavern, dungeons have highly technical and lethal traps for no reason, and people pay you to steal stuff, that kind of thing. The whole series is collected into 3 volumes. Volume 1, Shadow Plague, starts with an evening's drinking and is interrupted by an undead plague. This results in a quest to find out who has opened a portal to the mirror world of Shadowfell. Volume 2, First Encounters, we start with a flashback and get some backstory on all our heroes, and actually shows them with their first trip into another mirror realm called the Feywild. Later on, we return to the present day for them, and once again they find themselves in the Feywild, having to deal with their past deeds. At this point, it should be noted that John Rogers created the Feywild realm for the 4th edition rulebook Manual of the Planes, so it always made me smile that when he came to creating his own comic, he set it in a realm he actually created for the role-playing game itself. Volume 3, Down. This begins with a job protecting goods en route. They visit party member Carl's dwarven home and find something very, very amiss. It's all a nice rollicking adventure with some great iconic monsters, some fantastical settings and a sly wit behind it all. Principal artist Andrea DeVito, who I think I absolutely loved House of M, the X-Men series, and he's a big part of that. Well, he does his usual bang-up job. Also, Jesus Obertov and his Graphic Slava art studio do some amazing colouring that really elevates the beautifully drawn fantasy. The story played really well to the legion of D&D players out there in the world. Success was pretty much guaranteed. During this time, IDW then started what was to become its future strategy, and that's releasing 5-issue miniseries one after another. The first came in 2011, Ayanto's Tomb, the first time that the Dark Sun setting got its own series. Dark Sun is a very controversial D&D settings, and it had a very unconventional tone and feel to it. It's set in the world of Athos, which is a sun-bleached desert land. It's brutal, harsh, and life is cheap, and a daily struggle to survive. This is a world moved on, a post-apocalyptic, magic-ravaged realm. What magic there is a darker, older earth magic, wielded by very few. The race and class system of the traditional D&D is turned on its head, and common magic is replaced by mutated psionic powers. Ayanto's Tomb does do a very good job of capturing this grimmer, serious tone. It's a solid shift away from the Tolkien-esque. The story played very well into the hands of the legion of D&D fans out there in the world that were just begging for something like this. It was during this time that IDW then formed its future strategy, and that was to release 5-issue miniseries one after another. And that's something that they've continued right up to today. The first one came in 2011, Ayanto's Tomb. This is the first ever time that the Dark Sun setting got its own series. Dark Sun was a very controversial D&D setting, and it had extremely unconventional tone and feel to it. The world of Athos is a sun-bleached desert, brutal and harsh, where life is cheap and a daily struggle to survive. It's a world moved on, a post-apocalyptic, magic-ravaged realm. What magic there is a darker, older earth magic, rare to find and wielded by few. It kind of turned traditional D&D on its head, and even common magic was replaced by mutated psionic powers. The book does capture this grimmer, serious tone well. It's a solid shift from Tolkien-esque to a post-apocalyptic dying earth genre. The setting was a bit Marmite amongst my friends back in the day, and rereading this for the podcast, I actually found it intrigued me more than I ever did. I'm going to try and find some of the Dark Sun novels that are out there, but unfortunately they're quite old and hard to come by now, or at least in a decent condition. In 2011, we also got returned to the Forgotten Realms in Neverwinter Tales, The Legend of Drizzt. I'm glad they returned to the tale of Drizzt Do'Urden. He's the renegade drow who is now an iconic Forgotten Realms character, thanks to the best-selling and multi-award-winning fantasy books of R.A. Salvatore. The original novel series trilogies had been adopted to comics, and I'd read both the books and the comics. But as he carried on publishing, I never quite got as far as the Neverwinter Saga trilogy of novels. I think that the Neverwinter Tales comic is actually an original piece, and is written by R.A. Salvatore himself, along with his son Gino Salvatore. I think they're kind of events that happened during that trilogy of books, but I'm not entirely sure. It's a nice standalone adventure, and there's some cracking art by Agustin Padilla, who is now a big DC artist who got most, I think, attention with his Infinite Crisis, Smallville and Suicide Squad art credits. In 2012 we got Abraxas Wren of Eberron, and this is a very different kettle of fish. Now, Eberron is a D&D setting that I've never played, read the books, or know anyone that has. It has a very strong fan base, I do know that, but it was created during an edition of D&D that I didn't care for to play, so I missed out on all these campaign worlds. And I really liked this comic. I only just read it, basically I sought it out purely for the purposes of a review and this podcast. Eberron is a world where low-level magic is massively common and employed everywhere to make daily life easier, whilst high-level magic seems to be notable by its absence. Instead, technology has come forward, and what this really is, it's a steampunk version of D&D. Abraxas Wren, the chief character, comes across as a Sherlock Holmes homage whose vast ego outstrips his, albeit quite impressive, ability. And he has his put-upon dwarf Torrin as his Watson. Their tale is set in the rather interesting city of Sharm, with its high-tech fantasy trappings of sky ships and the like. There is even a great train sequence in it, and the whole adventure takes the form of an investigation. And it's a really cracking read. There is another tale included in the collected version that I got hold of, called Eye of the Wolf. And this gives some history to Eberron as a place through the eyes of Captain Racheal Smiths. The art by Chris Lyle is just stunning, and some really nice understated colouring from Rob Ruffalo. This is a really nice collected trade paperback, and I'm glad I found it. IDW also did a great bit of fan service around this time, and they reprinted all the old DC Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and Forgotten Realms comics, as well as the original Legend of Drizzt adaptations from Devil's Due Publishing. In 2012, we got standalone miniseries called simply Forgotten Realms. Set in the city of Waterdeep, it all seemed like a bit of a misstep in my opinion. There was fine artwork from Dean Cox, but the story of political intrigue was very muddled, and when action did break out, it felt very confused, I'm afraid to say. Later on, in 2013, we get Forgotten Realms Cutter, another original from now father and son team RA and Gino Salvatore. And it's a bit of an odd one, this one. It's not a Drizzt story, but it is about a completely different renegade drow who left the drow city of Mento Baranzan in the same way that Drizzt did. It's a story about a sentient sword. This sword forces a sibling to kill another sibling, and then another sibling to kill that sibling, to then steal the said sword. I have to admit, I've always felt hints of Michael Moorcock's Elric in the Drizzt writing, and here we now have a Drizzt clone, and now with a sentient sword in it to boot. It did feel a little lazy and uninspired to me, but it's an okay story, but just not one of R.A. Salvatore's best, I'm afraid. He obviously likes writing drow characters, and I guess when you're rich and famous and you have a huge following, I guess you can write what makes you happy. But we'll pause here, and that's because in 2014, the 5th edition of the D&D game was released. It was developed over many, many years using open playtest and a set of beta rules that it gave out to its fan base. When it came, it was a revelation. It simplified play. It went back to the game's origins. It was presented in a gender and ethnically diverse way that ensured instant worldwide appeal. It kind of represented the values and inclusivity that D&D always had, but put it out there for everyone to see. And to celebrate this big release, IDW began an all-new team-led series in the new 5th edition vein. And they also chose a familiar face to help. The new comic series was Legends of Baldur's Gate, and it debuted immediately following the 5th edition starter set release. It was heavily advertised as featuring a beloved D&D character, but strangely one that's probably better known by video gamers than RPG players. And that is the slightly insane ranger that everyone loved, Minsk, and his constant travelling companion Boo, the miniature giant space hamster. That's right, Minsk and Boo were characters in the hugely successful Baldur's Gate RPG video game from BioWare. They were kind of a pair of AI allies that would join the player parties and offer them new quests or general support and more than a little comic relief. The series writer, Jeff Grubb, is yet another writer who started writing RPG supplements first before expanding his resume in comics and novels. He's deeply entrenched in the D&D Forgotten Realms setting, and his choice to set it in the city of Baldur's Gate and reference the video game series characters kind of brought in a nice new gamer audience to D&D and also introduced them to comics as well. The first series, Legends of Baldur's Gate, is actually a very simple story, but it's all the more effective for it. Elf magic user Delina sneaks into the upper city to find her twin brother who was missing. She accidentally magically resurrects Minsk and Boo from their petrified stone statue state. Eventually they run around and meet Crydal and Shandy, who join them as their outlaw friends. Simple, but Jeff achieves all he needs to. He establishes an adventuring party, all with a bit of background. He brings Minsk to life in the way he acts and talks, and just makes him unmistakably Minsk from the video game. He gives a good look at Baldur's Gate as a city and a society, and then he rams in loads of D&D tropes to stamp the comic indelibly with that D&D RPG origin. And finally, he makes it absolutely clear that there is a new tone to this series. Fun. Just fun, really. That pretty much is all he needed to do to establish this ongoing series. He does the job, and Max Dunbar's art is just gorgeous. The next mini-series, followed shortly after, was Shadows of the Vampire, and that was in 2016. Here we see the same band of adventurers, but now entering the land of Ravenloft, and their job is to protect a chapel from the evil forces that pervade the lands of Barovia. Here they meet the infamous Vistani seer Madame Eva, and eventually come face to face with the ruler of Barovia, vampire lord Strahd von Zarovich. Jeff gets Ravenloft as a setting, but he then blends the gothic horror with comedy, and he does this really well. The main intention is fun, and fun is what you get. Nelson Daniel has taken over the art duties with a slightly more cartoony feel, and the ensuing violence and spell slinging gets a more dynamic feel to it, and it really suits the story. I'm a big fan of his style. It's a sort of a general romp, really, and this continues in 2017 with the next miniseries, Frost Giant's Fury. This time, Jeff sends our intrepid group, plus a newly joined cleric Nerys from the last adventure, into the frozen wastelands where they try to stop some pirate frost giants get their grubby hands on a very, very powerful. I think, personally, this is one of the most atmospheric and beautifully drawn of the series that IDW have been responsible for so far. The artist, Nertho Diaz, is just brilliantly supported by the colouring of Thiago Ribeiro and Milan Parvanov. Glauber Mathos and JB Neto do the inking duties, and it's just a winning combination of a team. Neil Yotake's fine lettering really just rounds it off perfectly. It's just a dream team for me. It's a sprawl of an adventure, and it's a personal favourite. In 2018, we got Evil at Baldur's Gate, and this brings back the whole party to the beginning as they return home to Baldur's Gate. And it's an interesting kind of conclusion. It kind of takes each character in turn, and it seeks to resolve their internal quests, and they face a personal trial, and they achieve their destiny. Its aim is to bring each character's journey to an end. For some, it's satisfying and a little more than you'd hope for, and sometimes it's a little less than you expected, but it's a good ending. It's a really good series looking back. And this year, that's when we had the new series. A Darkened Wish started in March. Fun times are over, people, and it's time to get serious and epic. Our main character this time is the wizard Helene, and from the very start it feels like a complex story, littered with flashbacks and flash-forwards, a much, much bigger impacting story on the very world of Forgotten Realms. I am enjoying it, and the artwork of this is just superb, thanks to Tess Fowler. And this is someone who we'll talk about a little more next episode. We already know that there's another mini-series called Infernal Tide, and that's planned for November of this year. And well, that's brought us up to date, and beyond even. And it represents an amazing body of D&D and comics work. Next episode, in the final part, I'll be sorting through the best of the rest. All those unofficial D&D inspired comics, be it from self-published amateurs all the way to seasoned publishing house professionals. I really can't wait. Till next time.
We have with us today Junko Mizuno. How are you today?
Hi.
I'm
trying to wake up.
you were just saying to us you've just got out of bed.
Yeah.
And you're over in Los Angeles at the minute, is that right?
I live in San Francisco.
San Francisco, sorry. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's the weather like today? Is it looking nice out there today, or?
It's kind of cloudy, but not raining.
Oh,
I was about to say, it sounds like Britain, but no, it rains.
yes.
So, you're originally from Tokyo, is that right?
Yeah, I'm originally from Tokyo.
How was it growing up in Tokyo? Because it's somewhere we'd love to visit one day.
So I was born in 1973, and
It's just
where should I start?
what was it like? I mean, what did you enjoy doing? Were there particular places you enjoyed going to?
Okay, so I didn't grow up in a very cool place like Shibuya or Harajuku.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Itabashi, which is like the edge of Tokyo. So 1973 had the peak of birth.
Okay.
You know what I mean? There were so many children.
Okay.
Oh,
yes.
In the year. So I remember the entertainment for kids were really big at that time compared to now. You know, people stopped having children in Japan. So it's kind of sad now. But I remember I was surrounded by a lot of kids' animations and comics, magazines for kids, and toys, and, candies that come with tiny toys.
Oh.
So my parents are, my father is a construction worker, and my mother was a housewife. So they didn't know anything about art. I didn't grow up in an artistic family. So the art I enjoyed was, that kind of things, comic and toys and animations. So,
was there any particular comic you were reading back then?
I was reading so many things, but basically, when I was little, it was basically girls' comics with the characters with big eyes and things like that. But later, I started to get into other things. But basically, my first influence was cute things like that. But I was also into horror comics, like Kazuo Umezu.
Okay, that's something.
But I was too scared to have the books. So I used to go to my friend's home, and she had a lot of horror comics. So I used to read that comics at her house.
I think we all had something like that, didn't we? Whether it was movies or books or something, there was always something you weren't allowed to enjoy as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blast you, parents.
I was not allowed to see E.T., the movie.
Okay.
Isn't it funny? My mother thought it was a horror movie.
It scared me.
I was going to say,
as a child, it really scared me.
And it'd make you cry.
Like that.
It's just interesting how cultures change, isn't it? And how the whole way we look at the world changes through generations upon generations. And I think movies and comics certainly show that.
Yes.
In the change.
Yeah.
So how did you get into creating comics? I believe you were quite young when you first did your first pitch.
So I don't even remember when I started drawing, because I was already drawing when I was 3. There's a photo of me drawing at 2, when I was 2. So But at that time, all the kids were drawing. They were all reading comics. They were all buying comic magazines. So it was natural for them to copy their favorite comics on random pieces of paper. And I have a sister who is 3 years older, and she was drawing. So I started imitating her, started drawing naturally.
Okay. And so when did you create your first comic as such, or story out of your drawing?
I don't remember that either, but I still have comic pages that I made when I was 5 or 6. It's on my website, actually.
That's brilliant. Most of us have lost our old stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's all gone, isn't it? Yeah.
So when did you think, I want to do this for my career, whether it be drawing or comics, or was there a certain point when you went, this is it, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, I think I was already thinking about it when I was 3 or 4. But it sounds strange, but it was totally normal in Japan at that time, because comic artist was like a popular profession for kids. It felt like they were stars. The magazines created the images that comic artists were superstars. And, some girls wanted to become a singer. Some girls wanted to become an actor. But comic artist was also the really, really popular profession for girls and boys at that time.
So you say at that time, has it changed since then, do you think, or?
I don't know. I have to talk with younger people in Japan. I don't know what's happening right now. Maybe they want to be YouTubers now instead of comic artists. But I don't know. I don't know how if they still read comics or.
So how did you get into the style that you've got now then? Did it evolve over time, or was it always that sort of style?
Yeah, it has changed a lot. So I was just imitating the cute comics or, the Sanrio, Hello Kitty kind of style for a while. And after that, I started to get into more like underground comic kind of thing. And then, I started sending my comics to the publishers when I was 10.
Oh, wow.
It sounds crazy, but, every comic magazine had kind of like a contest thing. You can just send your comic pages, and the editors used to make comments on the magazine, or they also replied to the artists with letters with advice. So I started doing it when I was 10. But I was just 10. So the editors used to send me letters with encouraging words, but I was expecting to become a professional at that time. But it didn't work, of course, because I was just 10. And I decided to give up being a comic artist. I decided I didn't have a talent of making stories.
Okay.
And then I started to explore other forms of art. And I used to go to bookstores and libraries and looked at art books. And I found Aubrey Beardsley. You know him, right?
No.
No.
He's a British artist. Really?
No. But we'll be looking up
Yes,
after
we
this.
will have
Sure,
to.
You're probably right. We just don't
I'm
know.
sure you have seen. Maybe my pronunciation of his name was wrong.
We will check
Baldur,
after the
Beersley.
interview. We will check and have a nosy.
Yes.
Okay. He's a British artist from the 19th century.
Okay.
And he was an illustrator influenced by old Japanese art.
Right.
But it looks very psychedelic also. It's very different. And I was so shocked at his work when I was 12 or 13. I started copying his style a lot. If you see his art, you can see the influence. It's very strong.
Well, what we'll do when...
And yeah, I think that was one of the biggest influence I had in my art. And it has changed my style a lot. And then when I was 19 or 20, I was working at a movie theater, and I saw the first Sailor Moon movie at the theater, and that made me start making stories again.
Okay.
I was kind of excited at how great the movie was, and I wanted to start creating characters and stories again.
So, for those who may not have seen your graphic novels or your work, how would you explain your style?
It's difficult. It's my style.
Yes.
I've been influenced by so many things. I don't care about genre when I read comics or when I see art, when I see movies. Genre is meaningless for me. So my work is just the result of all the things I've experienced in my life. And it's still changing. I keep getting new influences every day, so it's hard to name my style. It's just my style.
I definitely think it's got to be seen. It's stunning.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
yes.
that beautiful is a good word as well, to be fair. It's gorgeous. The colours in your imagery as well are just spectacular.
Thank you. It's a little bit crazy, though.
Well, yeah, I think you said the term psychedelic. I think that
Yes,
works.
yeah, it really does.
So your first actual graphic novel, was it Pure Trance, is that right?
Yes.
How was that to see that released and printed?
That book is very special to me because it's a novel. I also didn't expect it to be published as a book. It was so at first this record company had a series of techno compilation CDs that was released every other month at the time in the 90s. And they offered me to do the cover art at first. And I talked with the guy who was making that CD, and he was into comics. And he asked me to do a serial comic in the booklet of the CD because it was coming out every other month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I started it, but I was not sure if the comic was good or not. it was not in the magazine, so I didn't even know if the people who bought the CD were even interested in reading comics. They bought the CD for the music. Maybe they saw the cover, but I think people were confused when they saw the comic. Like, why there's comic in the booklet, and it's not about techno music or anything. But the guy who offered me to do the comic, his request was doing something futuristic, but also something primitive, which is like techno music. And I was into the movie Blade Runner, and also other like Akira or that kind of comics. So it's like a mix of the girls' comic style with science fiction kind of thing, but also fantasy comic.
Sounds cool.
It does.
But but after I finished the serial in the CD booklet, this publisher told me they wanted to make it into a book. And I think I was 24 or 5, and I was not sure if I could keep making comics in the future as a professional at that time. And it was my first book, and I thought maybe it will be my last book. You never know.
No, yeah.
So I remember I put all my energy into that book, and I added so many things, and I added so many new pages, and I was young, so I didn't need to sleep too much. I can't do that now, but I remember I put all my energy and all the things I wanted to do in that book.
It obviously worked.
Yes.
So you then, your next book, I believe, was published in the States as well?
Yeah.
Was that sort of like your real big break? Was it Cinderella, am I right?
Yeah, the fairy tale series.
So what led you down that path then of doing stories based on those old folklores? That
was a request for the editors. I actually hated all the editors who worked in that project. They were a bunch of old guys, and they saw my art, and they thought it would sell. But they also thought the story of Pure Trance was so lame. It's totally different from other comic. So they thought it was too weird and crazy. So they wanted to work with me, but they didn't want me to make stories. So they told me to base the comic on fairy tales, so it will be safe.
Right, okay.
It was fun, but I was also frustrated because the editors, it was obvious they didn't know anything about comics, but they were talking down on me.
Yeah, I thought you've just got to do things, haven't you? Sometimes, if it gives you that break and that chance, even if it's
now I can say it was a good experience.
Yeah.
But I can't talk about the details right now because it's gonna be long. But there were so many troubles and problems with that project.
Okay.
And I had a lot of arguments with the guys. One of them would call me drunk and
Oh, God.
insulted me a lot.
Oh, no.
No, you don't want that. No.
It took me a long time to get over the anger with them. And I don't talk with them anymore.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also learned a lot. For the first Japanese Cinderella, I didn't even know how to color the pages by myself on computer.
Okay.
So the designer colored it, but I was not happy with it. And that made me decide to learn how to do coloring on computer.
Okay.
And I think I was really lucky to be able to publish comics in full color. It was rare in Japanese comic industry. Most of the Japanese comics are black and white. So publishing full color comics, it was a very unique thing to do. And it's hard to do also because it cost a lot. But the economy was good at the time. And now I really appreciate that I could do that.
So now, obviously, you've had a few published books. We've just been reading Ravina the Witch, which, as I say, the art is stunning. It really is so bright.
It is so beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
We love it.
Thank you.
So how do you find it now working in the industry? I suppose you've got a lot more control, I guess, now, and you can choose what you want to do and write what you want to do. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So a much happier place.
That's right. But so I don't have the old guys who are looking down on me right now. Yeah. Now it's just the time and how do you say? I'm not as strong as I was when I was younger.
We know that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get tired very easily. So the deadlines and my health, they are the two problems right now. But I have so much more freedom in what I do right now. Yeah,
that's good. So you're coming over to the lakes again in October. How does the Lake District compare to the beauty of Japan? Are we up there?
It's totally different.
Well,
I'm not a how do you say? I'm not a very nature kind of person.
Okay.
I'm an indoor person because I've always inside of my room at my desk drawing. But when I went to the Lake District in 2014 for the festival, I was really excited. I was not expecting that kind of place. Usually when you do comic festival, it's in the city. Or a convention center. And I was really busy and I hadn't had the time to do a research about the place before I went there. So when I arrived, I felt like I was in a dream or something. And I was surprised at myself getting so excited about the nature.
Okay.
It's so beautiful and the air was so clear. And I took so many photos. I was so excited. And the festival was really great. It's not San Diego Comic-Con.
No.
It's totally different. Yeah.
You can breathe. You can the space. And you've done the logo for this year's as well, which is gorgeous.
Yes.
So.
Oh, the art?
Yeah, yeah. Really nice. So if you've not seen it already, just look on the website. It's splattered.
Yes.
Front page. Absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
So this year when you come in, have you got any plans? Are you going to have a look further afield in the UK, or is it just for the festival?
I might be visiting London as well, but I haven't decided yet. But I'm planning to arrive early. I think I'm going to do a show at an art school.
Okay.
In Kendal.
Oh, right, yes.
Oh, I'm looking at my email. Yeah, I need to talk with them about what to do there.
Yeah.
But I'll have a show, a gallery in an art school. So I'm arriving early. So I'm planning to explore more.
Excellent.
Yes.
In Lake District. I'm really excited.
No, it'll be really good this year. And
Yes.
it poured last year. It rained.
It was so rainy
So
last
this
year.
year it should be dry. That's the way I look at it.
Is that how it works? Is
That's
it
how it
rain one
works.
year and then dry the next?
Try the next.
It's October, so
It's gonna
natural.
rain.
It's going to rain.
I'm
So
okay with the cold. I have sun allergy. So it's better for me to be in a cloudy weather.
Yeah.
Kendall, you could,
Kendall
you could
would
live
be
in
fine.
Kendall. So what are your future plans then? Have you got a book in the works at the minute then? Can you speak about it?
So, Pure Trance, my first graphic novel, is going to be re-released, hopefully in September.
Okay.
Oh, lovely.
Or October. We're trying to make it to the festival.
Yeah.
It's gonna have a new cover, new hardcover, and new cover art. And also my very first art book called Hell Ladies is going to be published by the festival also. So it's an interesting year. Both my first art book and first graphic novel is going to be re-released.
Yes. Ooh.
That's exciting.
I'm going to have to get my hands on them.
Yeah. Super. Well, if they are around in October, we will come and get signatures from yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
And we'll...
So you're going to be there.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yes,
we
we're there.
we record the old weekend as such. And
Yes.
so we will come and say hello.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. And thank you very much for your time tonight. Or this afternoon.
Thank you so
in
much.
yours.
Thank you.
How do? Welcome to Breakdowns, the comic art section of the podcast. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm a small press comics creator and illustrator. Online I trade as This Man, This Pete. This episode, we have a returning guest. Last year, I chatted to Adam Smith, digital marketing manager of mixem.co.uk, about their entry into the comic book printing market. And he's back to talk about an innovation that will benefit both creators and comic book consumers. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Pete. How you doing?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Good to have you back. How's business been this last year?
It's been good. I mean, it's been really interesting. The first year of Mixam printing comic books has had its ups and downs. We've learnt a heck of a lot, but it's just been wonderful becoming part of this community, talking to our customers, learning what they want, and doing our very best to give them what they want.
Yeah, I mean, being at the ground floor of the industry, actually printing the raw material that ends up in the creators and the consumers' hands. I mean, that must give you quite an interesting viewpoint. You're working for self-published small press comics and some small to medium publishers. So how is the industry looking?
I mean, generally it's looking good. We're seeing an increase in Kickstarter printing. That could be just as more and more people find out about Mixam. It could be Kickstarter and crowdfunding doing better in general. I don't entirely know, but I think the most important thing I've discovered is understandably how passionate people are about their comics and the print quality that comes out. Some people have got so emotional they've actually posted like live unboxing videos, which always make me nervous.
Brilliant.
And I remember there was one girl, she actually just burst into tears. She was so overwhelmed with emotion how happy she was to have her comics.
But I mean, you're right. I mean, Kickstarter has become such a huge part of comics now. It's the favoured way to market for a lot of creators. That process is only helped by the increase in festivals and cons. I think those two things are really driving the small press side and the creator-owned market at the moment. So we were talking off air about how it all really started at MCM London last year.
Yeah, so like I say, we've only been printing comics for a year. So I went along to the show, and I went to a variety of different exhibitions because I was just kind of finding my feet, because I was new to the printing industry, believe it or not.
Cool.
And I came along to MCM. I met Matt Garvey and Phil Buckingham, who were already printing with us, and just generally had a wander around and thought, well, there's actually a really good opportunity here. And I met loads of weird and wonderful people, and came away with loads of information. I came back the next day and I said to my boss, right, we absolutely need to have a comic books page. And it's all kind of taken off from there.
You really did tailor that comic book page as well to having the formats that weren't frequently available elsewhere, and that real-time reporting, which we talked about in the last one, was something that I've greatly appreciated being able to look up. And then you returned to MCM London this year with
or last year
with quite a few competitions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, because we're not creators, we couldn't get like a Comic Village table, but we managed to get a booth just next to the Comic Village for a crazy sum of money, and we decked all that out because Lorenzo Everington, we printed his Kickstarter for him. He allowed us to use his artwork in our promotional materials,
Nice.
which was really generous.
Yeah.
So we had like all the Stransky art everywhere, all over the stand. Had loads of examples in front of all the different comics that we've done, because quite a few people by this point in the Comic Village had started printing with us. And like you say, we had a really good competition where there was a Perspex box. I went round over the 3 days, spoke to the people in the Comic Village, some who printed with us, some who didn't, just saying hi, introducing myself. Didn't want to sell them anything, gave them a little goodie box which has some fun stuff in, but in every box was a key. And the idea was that at some point during the 3 days that the creators would come over to our booth and try their key in our locked box, and if their key unlocked the box, they would win a copy of the Etherington Brothers How to Think When You Draw Kickstarter book.
That's the way to do it. I've backed both of those books. The first one hasn't actually managed it to get to my shelf yet. It's just stayed on my desk. It's a constantly awesome bit of reference, that.
Yeah, the second one's really nice. That actually, it finished production this week, arrived at the Etheringtons sort of distribution warehouse, because there's lots of logistics that we're working on with them in the background. We got our copies in the office yesterday, and I think collectively all the staff down tools and just came huddled around this box to have a look at these books, because they were so nice, and the work inside is just superb. They've absolutely smashed it yet again.
So the range of material that you're producing, if you look on your social media, you've got all manner of small press and graphic novels that you're producing now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to mention some of your favourites? I know there's too many to list, so it might be a good use of the blog, actually, if you want to send a bigger list, and I'll post it after the interview. But if you pick some of your favourites at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Right, so off the top of my head, right, some of these would be UK and US, because we're printing on both sides of the pond, which we'll get onto. So first one, Matt Garvey, Pray for Us. Great comic, and it's only the first issue, so I'm interested to know what will happen further in the series. Nice neary colours, really love that. I've just finished reading The Theory by TPub. Some fantastic stories in that. Thankfully not quite as dark as their Twisted Dark stuff. And there's it's a Kickstarter that's just completed, but we printed the teaser issue for it, called Woodland Creatures, which is by Christina Roswell. That's a really good looking comic. And then on the American side of things, there's a brilliant comic called Death Wish by, there's two girls, Joy Johnson and Lisa Schroeder, I think. And the whole comic and the story, the series, is actually based on one of the music videos from the rock band My Chemical Romance. Thankfully, their frontman is a comic creator, and he's kind of endorsed it, so nobody's getting sued, thankfully.
Always a plus.
Yeah, absolutely. Skies of Fire by Racheal. Really nice guy, and I absolutely love the art and the story. That's fantastic as well. And then one that's came out of nowhere that looks really good is called The Monstrous Adventures of Beowulf.
Ooh.
Quite a big blocky kind of art style, and it's just so unnecessarily gory, but in a cartoon style. So it's really good fun. So yeah, I recommend those.
Cool. That last one sounded right up my street. Brilliant. Right, so you've mentioned the US there, which brings us naturally onto the fact that you're now offering printing in the UK and the US. Yeah, that's right. So the intent is to give people the same quality both sides of the pond, because some of the Kickstarters we've printed like last year, people would print loads of us and then say, because we did this with TPub actually when they came on board, printed their latest volume of Twisted Dark as well. They wanted us to print thousands of copies, ship some to their distribution in the UK, some to distribution in Canada, and some in the US. Which obviously the shipping cost is often more than the comics. Than the printing costs, yeah. Yeah, which is crazy. So now that we've got printing in the UK and the US on the East Coast, and we're working on West Coast at the moment, the idea is that if somebody did a Kickstarter with us, because they'd get the same quality and consistency and service, because we have a night shift and everything's done from the UK for the customer service, let's say, for example, they had to print 3,000 comics. They could be like, right, I'm going to print 1,000 in the UK, 1,000 on the East Coast, 1,000 on the West Coast, and then we would ship them to all the relevant distribution centres. And then it would save them a fortune in shipping. Do you know, it's funny, I was only listening to a podcast the other day run by two strip cartoonists, and they answer questions from cartoonists. One guy was an Australian comic artist who wanted to attend a con in the States, and their advice was, don't ship your stuff, find a printer in the US. Is there a minimum quantity that you have to order, or is it available for the short runs that you do in the UK? You could print one if you wanted. Anyone who's got their mum in the States. Perfect. Oh, yeah, you can do a print run of one. I mean, I think it's the same to print 5 as it is to print 1. So most people print 5. But yeah, you can do all this stuff. Kickstarter is certainly king. I have to say, I got my last Kickstarter package from the mighty Nick Prolix, which I think was printed with you guys. Yeah. So I think it's time to give him a plug on the show as well. All issues of the new book 4 of Slang Pictorial, they're available from nickprolix.bigcartel.com. Brilliant. Well, thanks, Adam. Thanks for coming on. Oh, thanks for having me, Pete. I really appreciate it. And of course, if you would like to print some comic books or just check out our prices, please head on over to mixam.co.uk/comicbooks. Thanks for listening. You can find me at ThisManThisPete on Instagram and Twitter, or contact me and find links to my comics at thismanthispete.com.
Hello, and welcome to Small Pressed, the Small Press review section of the Comic Art Festival podcast with Tom Stewart from That Comic Smell podcast. Now, today I'm going to speak to you about a very, very exciting and absolutely gorgeous small press book that was sent along to myself from the extremely talented Russell Mark Olsen. Yes, I am talking about The Black Iris, which actually started off as Russell's 2018 Inktober effort, but obviously with, as he explains in the book, with commitments and whatnot getting in the way, he was forced to delay it. And then he continued it on in April, which I'm so glad he did, as I was following along with him for Inktober when I was doing my own ones. His was actually one of the ones that I was so excited to follow along with. It was so striking just with the first image. The first one that he ever put up was like these robot plants with a like black iris plant in the corner, and then the next day he put up, it was like an underlit image of a woman taking a picture, and it just got better and better from there. Obviously the book doesn't open that way. The book opens with the title card, which was like the fourth day. Now, just to give you a little insight before I go any further on the Black Iris, I will read you what is written on the back of the book. Behind enemy lines, the fearless spy known as Black Iris will do whatever it takes to bring stolen plans for a secret Nazi weapon to the hands of the Allied forces. But can she avoid falling into the monolithic clutches of the enemy? As Russell actually explains at the end of the story in his little description bit, he was actually doing a book based on like 1940s films, and when he did a test, or like a paper test, he did an image of the main protagonist, the Black Iris, and it was very much Lauren Bacall. But obviously you can't use Lauren Bacall's name, so it is Lauren Buckaw. So LORENBUCKAW in The Black Iris. But that title card is just straight away, just screams old MGM, like right away. I can actually hear the music playing throughout this entire comic, like the feel that it gives off, that actual old film feel, straight away, right off the bat. Even with the cover, I can actually hear the old MGM strings and we got brass and everything coming up. It's just absolutely amazing. Speaking of which, on the front cover, I have stared at that front cover for absolutely ages. Ever since it was put up on Twitter that he was releasing it as the book, I have stared at that cover endlessly. Or even when I opened the file, when Russell sent it on to me and I opened up the file, I sat looking at the cover for a while because it's a nice sort of black and grey and blue tone in it, and he's got a striking like yellow title for the Black Iris, the kind of shadow behind it. It's just beautiful. I'm just going to say right off the bat, I absolutely adore this book. Everything about it visually is stunning, and Russell really has a really good way of storytelling just through images. There is no dialogue in this whatsoever. The only dialogue per se would be in the sound effects, and there is speech bubbles, but the speech bubbles just have like little iconography in them. But this is usually when the characters are quite like stilted, like they're away to do something, so in those images they need something to describe. Whereas every other one, it's within the image what's happening. It's very much show don't tell, and Russell really has a grip on show don't tell. It's just fantastic. It's absolutely beautiful. There's such good action in it and everything as well. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Like I say, I could hear the music from the minute go, and right through it there is good use of sound in images. Now obviously there's not actually a soundtrack to it, but you can hear it within your head as you're reading through. You can hear the anticipation, the steps, like you can hear people chatting even though there's no dialogue on the screen. You can, even in the sound effects, he's used the right kind of sound effects to make that noise. You can hear everything. It gets your imagination going so much. It's unbelievable. It gave me a sort of Orson Welles kind of vibe. I've been watching a lot of Orson Welles films, and yeah, it gave me that kind of vibe, but also because it's black and white and sort of 1940s sort of thing. But it's really lovely. And there is a kind of, within the story, there is an almost sci-fi twist element, because there is a giant robot, a bit of steampunk thrown in there, a bit of robotic play, but yeah, nice little sci-fi twist within otherwise noir-looking action spy thriller. I think even the fonts that he uses on, there's a font that he uses on the sign, and it's in that kind of German lettering. It's just absolutely gorgeous, but it's perfect. Everything about it is absolutely perfect. There isn't a lot of black outlines and everything. He does well to stray away from heavy black outlines, so it gives that nighttime feel about it, and like everything's being lit by the moon, like a lot more effect. If it had a sort of thick black line around it, I don't think you would have got that same effect. Don't get me wrong, there is some of them that there is that thick black line going throughout it. There's some characters that it's like that, but it's usually when they're against a white background or something like that. I mean, the soldiers have got sort of thick black lines in their hats and on their face and everything, but it's so realistic. It captures the real physicality of these people so well. I really feel like obviously he's trying to capture the likeness and the feel of Lauren Bacall, but it really does. It really feels like sort of an unknown film that we've just uncovered hers. And that's another thing. It's a female protagonist throughout it. Now that kind of thing in 1940s films, you wouldn't have a sort of spy going against the Nazis thriller with the female being the hero, but it totally works. It's amazing. I have read this through properly, fully back to front, like through the story, not looking through it to just look at the images. I've read it from start to finish probably around 4 times properly. I don't tend to do that with a lot of stuff. I'll go back and look at stuff, don't get me wrong, readability wise I'll go back and read things quite a lot, but to actually read it from start to finish and not just look at certain pages or admire stuff like, oh, look at this bit here, to actually read it from start to finish, because I find myself getting into it and wanting to see the whole narrative play out. It's pretty special. But it's all done with ink, so it gives a nice sort of wash over it. It's very, I don't know, it's almost watercolour when you look at it, to be honest. I know ink gives off that vibe if you do it right anyway, but it does, it looks almost watercolour in places, especially with the cover, with the blue. But he's really captured making a comic out of storyboards, because every image was like the next day in Inktober. It's just one page, it's not panels. But that definitely makes up to it looking more like Hollywood storyboards that have then just been put into a comic. But it works so incredibly well. I honestly can't get over how amazing this thing is. I'm not bigging this, I'm not totally blowing this out of proportion either. Like, this is a special piece of work. It's nice A4 landscape as well, the actual book. Anybody that has this is certainly lucky to have such a unique piece. Silent comics are great to see done, but you don't see a lot of them done well. I see a lot of them that have a nice aesthetic to them and they look really pleasing to the eye and they're really good, but they don't get a narrative over well. There's a very few people that I know that can actually get over the point and basis of the story just through the images. It's all good and well making a silent comic and making it look nice, but you need to have that extra narrative push on it as well. Otherwise it's just a series of images and you'd be as well just making an art book and that's it. An extra thing that absolutely makes it for me, because everything is lit by moonlight. The moon plays a big part in it, and it's so easy to get caught up and make the moon look so detailed and put in a lot of effort with it. But he's made the moon so simple and just negative white space and occasional dots sort of splashed on ink or little bits of watercolour that it just looks so much better. It doesn't detract from the fact of everything else that's going on, you know. Keep the background bits so simple that everything else looks hyper detailed, and yet it's such an eye-catching and big feature of some of the pages. But yeah, the actual story and the whole piece itself is fantastic. But what is an extra thing to this and makes it just that little bit better is that there's like a 1-page wrap-up at the end where Russell tells you how the idea came about, what materials he used for it, and what the influences were and everything like that. And there's even a little bit about how he came up with like the layouts and everything as well, and then the layouts follow it after it, but he's done that all on one page. It's literally just a little blurb at the bottom and his little paper test at the top. One page. And most people would take reams and reams of pages to tell that, but a little caption at the bottom, that's it, done. And then it's the layouts that follow, which the layouts within themselves look like a finished piece. I think if he had done just the layouts, I think people would have bought that on itself. They look amazing. See, after reading this, all I could think was, I want to see him do a book that's more traditional. I want to see him do a book that is just using pen and ink, as opposed to these other pieces like Gateway City is all done digitally. Well, I'm pretty sure it's all done digitally. It looks digitally. And I think he's worked predominantly digitally, but God, this is just an absolute feat. Love it. I would love to see him do more stuff like this, and maybe more Adventures of the Black Iris. If this was like the start and then almost like the comic tie-in to the film kind of thing. Yeah, I think it'd be great. I think more Adventures with the Black Iris are definitely needed. So I highly, highly recommend you grab The Black Iris by Russell Mark Olsen. You can go across to his Big Cartel, Russell Mark Olsen, RUSSELLMARKOLSON.bigcartel.com, and you'll be able to grab a copy of the 44-page Black Iris A4 landscape across there. You'll also be able to grab a copy of Gateway City, his award-winning comic, across there too. I think there's some original pages as well, and another couple of comics across there. Definitely check it out. You can also get Russell on Twitter at Russell_M_Olsen, and on Instagram at Russell Mark Olsen. Definitely worth a look. One heck of a talented guy. I cannot thank him enough for sending on this book. It's such a treat. Absolutely love it, and I look forward to seeing more from him in the future, definitely. And that is it as far as reviews go for this week, but I actually have a couple of Kickstarters that I would like to mention before we go, seeing as how we're all about the small press in this section. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of small press Kickstarters whilst I'm here. Now, first of all, there is just over 2 weeks left to go for the Fragment, the Cambridge File by Adam Falp. Get across to Twitter and fund that. It's his retro spy one-shot. A British secret agent suffering from severe dissociative identity disorder seeks revenge on his former comrades. This is the second one, but I would definitely take Adam up on the pledge levels. There is pledge levels on here to get sketches or a spray paint commission from Adam, and he is one heck of a talented guy. He's very sort of Kirby influenced, and you can see it in the work. But it's just gorgeous stuff. I would definitely be going out of your way to fund that. As I said on his Kickstarter, all the look and feel of Jack Kirby doing Bond, the Fragment is completely fun, stunning and insane. Blows 007 out of the water. So give that a check out. And also the team of Samuel George London and Dan Butcher. Samuel George London of Comics for the Apocalypse, and Dan Butcher, one of 3 of the Awesome Comics podcast. Samuel George London being the man behind Beyond Milford Green, and Dan Butcher being the man behind the Awesome Vanguard. I've got together to do a all-ages horror 90s comic called Project Hoax. In 1994, a group of school kids stage a monster hoax to get their own back on their local bully, but get more than they bargained for. Yeah, this one's just started, so it's got roughly just over 25 days to go, but they are absolutely smashing it so far. They're not too far away from getting funded. It looks like an absolute hoot. By the looks of things, it's very sort of in the vein of your likes of your Goonies or your Monster Squad or something like that. The cover image that's been put up is just like these 2 glaring red eyes with Project Hoax in the middle, and then the kids down at the bottom all on BMX bikes with their lights shining out. It looks absolutely great. But there's some really inventive and great pledges that you can make behind it. There's some commission ones as well, and there's USB drives and stuff like that. Definitely give it a look. So that is The Fragment and Project Hoax, both across on Kickstarter. Check them out. If you would like to send on your small press comic to be reviewed, or if you'd like to suggest a small press comic that you maybe seen that you'd like to be talked about on the show, then please get in touch. I can be found on Twitter at URAMYX, or across at my own podcast, That Comic Smell, at That Comic Smell on Twitter and Instagram. You can also email me at thatcomicsmell@gmail.com. And that is it for Small Press. I have been Tom Stewart. Thanks again, folks. See you next time.
Okay, we're back.
Sorry, I was just scratching my nose.
Nice. Comic Art Festival. Let's talk some Comic Art Festival stuff.
Do it.
So, a few more names have jumped up. Daryl Cunningham shall be returning ahead of his new book, Billionaires. Guess what that's about?
Is it about me?
Published by Myriad again. Mm-hmm. David Leitch will also be coming along with his creator of the work, Psycho Gran. And editor of Titan Comics, who will bring both Dan Dare and A Prisoner back to comics.
Yay! I am not a number. I am a free man. There you go.
Right now, the festival director, Julie Tate, is putting finishing touches to the weekend schedule, which includes a mix of live draws, talks, film screenings, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
but also hosting a waffle party.
There's going to be
Thanks
waffles.
to our Belgian Jess.
There's going to be waffles.
There's going
I'm
to
going to be at the waffle
waffles.
party. We've got to go to the waffle party.
And big news, they've just gained their, oh God.
What? Is there more waffles?
Pika Kucha.
Sorry?
Pika Kucha. I need somebody to explain how to pronounce this. What's Pika Kucha, I hear you ask?
I don't know.
Well, I did. It means chit-chat in Japanese.
Does it, though?
It's a quick-fire format that allows presenters to show 20 images and describe them in 20 seconds each.
Oh, Lord.
So, great way to showcase creators.
Yes.
And finally, we have Rob Davies, whose new book, Book of Forks, will be launching at the festival.
I am going to hold him down and make him give me a copy.
Also be having him on the show in the upcoming months.
Yes, because he is like one of my favourites.
We have. He's agreed. He's agreed.
He's not
agreed
going to
in
not
principle.
agree because I will stalk him.
So, yeah, we've got Rob coming up. We've also got Lucy Sullivan coming up with her book Barking as well, because that's launching at the festival too. She'll be on the show in the near future. So, some exciting names there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rob Dave, I think that for us is the one.
He was like the first one we ever read.
Yeah, it was in Sci-Fi Mag. We thought, right, well, let's give this a try.
Yeah.
So we got the second one, and then they sent us the first one to read as well. It's like,
it was amazing.
So yeah, we're looking forward to getting Rob on the show and reading the final.
I can't wait.
Trilogy.
I need to know what happens because there's been.
It's only taken a year too long.
I know. I'm going to have to reread the two again before I get hold of it, which is fine.
That's fine.
I don't mind doing that. But yes.
That's coming up.
He said he could hear my voice telling him to hurry up at one point.
And so he slowed down.
Yeah.
Just to say something.
He went and got some therapy for that, I expect.
So I want to talk something different now.
My eyes twitching. Can't cope with the stress.
What the difference? We all know that majority of listeners are severe nerds.
Severe nerds?
Severe nerds. They've got severe nerdisms.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
And E3 has just been and gone.
Which we've watched. Because we're severe nerds too.
For those who don't know, then E3 is the biggest gaming expo in the world.
Yes.
And there was some new things announced.
Only some.
Well, Sony wasn't there, first of all.
No, they're doing their own thing.
They're doing their own thing, which is still very quiet. They've not come out.
They've got nothing.
Microsoft.
They were there.
Announced their new console coming out next Christmas.
With Halo, so we have to now buy it.
I would have waited. I would have waited.
But they said the magic word, didn't they?
They said the magic of Halo, which
and now we have to
is one of the few games
up.
that I play happily and love. And
which has made you start playing Halo 5 again.
Sorry.
What was that exactly?
That was a bit of the Halo music.
Was it though?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd recommend the Halo graphic novel out there. I forgot what it's called, but it's all short stories. Really good. But yeah, I'm very excited.
You are, aren't you?
For Halo.
Yeah.
There's a game coming out called Cyberpunk, which Nikki was slightly interested.
I got more interested as the trailer went on.
Why did you get more interested?
Keanu Reeves appeared, and he's so lovely.
And Keanu is in the game.
And Keanu's in the game. And Keanu introduced it, and he's so lovely. Yeah, he's the only man I'd leave in for, really.
Yeah, take that, everyone.
And you never know, I might just bump into him in Sainsbury's.
Why in Sainsbury's?
I don't know. Because he might be there buying cheese.
I don't think he eats cheese. I'm feeling he's dairy-free.
He might be buying a nut.
Okay. So, yeah, it looks
And he'll
interesting.
bump into me.
Jesus. Looks an interesting game.
Then he'll go, I've been waiting for you all my life. And I go, so have I. And he'll whisk me away.
Have you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Nintendo weren't there, but they did do an announcement days later.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've got the Nintendo Switch for those who are big gamers. Which, from
I've
the
got
start,
to buy that as well now.
why have we got to buy that?
Because of Pokemon.
It's not because of Pokemon.
It is, I want it because of Pokemon. Oh, I don't want it because of Pokemon.
No, you don't want it because of Pokemon. You want it because of Animal Crossing coming out next year. That's a muffled.
Oh, I'm going to be so
You want
broke.
to spend 250 quid just to play one game.
I know, it's so bad. But I love Animal Crossing, that I just totally forgot I was wanting. Yes, I want...
Explain Animal Crossing to people who may have never played it.
Oh, it's nothing. You just play as a little person, and you just pull up weeds and go fishing and catch bugs and meet all the people and build a bigger house. That is it. It's just, you know, when you just need to get away from the trials of life, then you play Animal Crossing. Or, as I'm finding now, Stardew Valley.
Could I just say it's probably going to be very little difference
There's
between
gonna be
previous
no
ones. So you could
difference.
just play the one you've got.
I could just play the one I've got. I haven't played it for so long, it's probably overrun with weeds now. But that's fine. I could start again. I could play the one I've got, but then it's not on a desert island, which is what this one's going to be.
You could pretend.
I could, but it's not.
I mean, there is a few games on there that will be fun, like Mario Kart and Smash Brothers
Oh, yeah.
and Mario and so forth.
Oh, and I could play Bayonetta again on it. And I could sit on the sofa and not have to move much.
You can do that now.
Yeah, but I could sit in bed and play it. I could sit on the loo and play it. I could sit in the bath.
You're not taking a £200 plus piece of kit into the bath.
I took the iPhone in the bath. I dropped it twice, but
Yes,
it's fine.
There you go. There you go. So, Nintendo are looking good.
Yes.
And we had, I'm trying to think what else came out.
Gears. Oh.
Gears. Game. Now, that's what I wanted to talk about. The future of gaming.
All right.
So, Microsoft, they've had the Game Pass running for a few years. So you
Yep.
pay a subscription fee, and you can download the games that are on there, and they're changing monthly.
Yep.
They've upped that now, so they've got the Ultimate Pass. You get the Xbox Live, you get everything in there. PC Game Pass as well. I think it's £10 a month,
Something like that.
and all their first-party games are coming straight onto the Game Pass. So if you want to play Gears 5, you play it day one.
Also, it means you don't have to take that horrible step of going, I'll spend 60 quid and get that game.
No.
Because I have done that on Mass Effect Andromeda, and that was the worst decision I have ever made.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
But there was nothing about Dragon Age 4, so I'm not happy.
Or the new Elder Scrolls.
Or the new Elder Scrolls. So,
So
that's my professional.
back in the day, there was a small company called Blockbuster that turned down joining with Netflix.
Oh, Blockbuster.
And look what happened. And Netflix has shown the way forward
Oh, yeah.
for TV. And obviously Microsoft, although they're not the first ones because EA did this first, but Microsoft have jumped on that, and they've seen that getting those people hooked on a subscription and continuous content
Yeah.
is the way forward. People...
But you also pitch it cheap enough so you forget
yeah.
about the direct debit.
Well,
That's what you got to do.
It's 120 quid a year.
Yeah.
That's
only two games.
Two brand new games. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's everything. And it's the way. 5 years' time, unfortunately, I used to work for Game. They're gone.
Yeah.
Because people are not going to be going and buying games. It is going to be a
Some people do
service.
still want their physical copies, but I think the
It'll
new
go.
generation of
It'll
games
go.
will not be able to take physical copies.
I mean, there may well be, but unlike DVDs and so forth, there's not enough people who play games who want to buy those physical copies.
Yeah.
Physical
them.
copies.
Yeah.
But then again, DVDs, where do you buy DVDs now? There's no DVD shop as such. There's
Amazon.
a few. Exactly. Supermarkets have them.
Yeah.
But you don't
You
have
can
an
get
individual.
CDs in supermarkets still as well.
Well, yeah, but you don't have other than a few HMCs which are really struggling.
Yeah.
You don't have that place you go and buy them. It's
No.
these single retailers just
Yeah.
don't work.
Because I've got Amazon Music subscription at the minute, and I reckon that'll be staying on for another month because I like it and I hate myself.
But it works.
Yeah, but
It's
you
easy.
think of all the subscriptions you're into. So that's your Netflix, your Amazon Prime, me, Audible, and Amazon Music. I mean, Amazon have got me cornered there. That's a lot of money coming out there. And then you've got like your Game Pass. I think that's,
it adds
when you
up.
add up, you're paying like 60 quid a month to have all these things.
And then you've got, with Netflix, now you've got Disney doing their own version. Warner Brothers.
I can live without those two, so that's fine.
Disney's going to have a lot of content now.
I can live without it.
It's
Now
interesting.
Studio Ghibli born. Sign me up.
They've only got limited content.
I would still have that all the time.
Okay. It is an interesting way, and I think they sort of tried to do that with comics a little bit as well. Not quite to the same extent, but I think it'll go that way. I think there'll always be the physical comics because books are different medium to...
Yes.
You know.
Which I think they've proved that with Kindles and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
They had that little... I mean, they're useful. I mean, I've got one. I haven't charged up in months now. But I've got one because it is useful to have...
Well, it's useful to have digital comics.
Yeah, but I prefer a real book.
Oh, yeah. But Comic House does have its benefits.
Oh, yeah,
'Cause
no, I've
you've
got
got
nothing
limited
against...
shelf space.
Yeah.
You know, you can only have so many realistically.
Yeah.
And being able to store them and have that there
Yeah.
is very useful.
I was thinking more graphic novels, but...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think comics, it's definitely the way forward.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting. It's interesting.
And
how
don't forget
things
to check out
evolve.
my comic on...
We've had right there we go. That's our E3.
I'm sure people are like, what?
What?
Get back to comics, people.
We're going back to comics. We've had a bit of I put a post up today on Twitter and there's a bit of a chat about your work
Hello.
and about how you're going to letter it because this is like this book you're creating now is your first non-silent.
I know, right? There's words. I'm not happy.
She's got to do work.
Well, we got to get it done right because we want to pitch it to some publishers. So, yeah.
So
help me.
lettering has always been on my mind. It's been a bit on yours, possibly. I don't know, but it's
Oh,
been.
nothing's much on my mind, darling.
And it's how do we hand draw it as in you, or
Yes.
do you go the digital route, which looks like a little bit more professional? And it's trying to get that.
Which doesn't match my work, let's be honest.
Well, no, it's trying to get that balance of what's easier for the readers to read and what's
Also,
more.
that fits
pleasing.
in with
Yeah.
the styles.
So we've sort of maybe come between a happy medium
Maybe.
at the moment. We've still got to try it out and see how it looks.
Yeah, we've got
We've got
scans.
advice for quite a few people.
Yes.
Lyndon White,
Yep.
Jens,
Yep.
Lucy.
Yep.
Trying to think who else.
Can't
Mark
remember. Jackson.
as well. And there's Calligrapher, a website that turns your writing into a font.
Yeah, I hadn't realised I wrote like a 2-year-old until it changes it into a font for you.
It's not.
Oh, that's not quite so great. Yes, it's not too bad.
Well,
I mean,
the
it's
only,
amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's
The,
great.
the only issue is you're not quite straight sometimes, but then I think that's quite interesting. I quite like that.
Looks like you're drunk, Nikki. Yeah, I need to see it written. We need to scan
Need to
one
do
my
it.
pages in and put it in and see if it actually suits it. I think it's an amazing thing to do because I mean, it took what?
10 minutes at the most, yeah.
That might be why.
But it's not something, again, that we as noobs have ever
Yeah.
thought about, the lettering side. You see letterers, people, that's their job.
Yeah.
And you think, why?
There's a reason now we've done it
But
ourselves.
then when you get to it, you can see why. Choosing that right font, whether you buy one, get one free, or you create your own is... You buy one,
You get one free.
It's a challenge, but something we'll...
Well, like I say, we're just plunging on ahead and see what happens, don't we?
But if anyone's got any advice on lettering, by all means, please do.
Yeah, please
let
tell
Nikki
us.
know.
Yes. Let me know. Bye, Twitter.
So if you listen to this, as I say, next weekend we will be at MacPow in Macclesfield. It's a one-day comic event.
I caught a cold last time I did that one.
Well, that's just the Macclesfield flu.
The plague.
No, sorry, joking. I'm only joking more. I'm just bringing up the list of people who are going to be there.
I will be there. What more do you need to know?
I'm not sure what to say now. So that's the 22nd of June. You have got Lou Stringer, Hannah Berry, Racheal Smith, Hunt Emerson, David Leach, Roger Langridge, Nick Brokenshire via Skype, Emmeline Page, Jessica Kemp, Tor Freeman, Jacob Phillips, Nigel Parkinson, David M. Bennett, Mark and Nancy Jackson, Lenil Sultana, English in San Diego, if you didn't know, Zoom Rockman, Seen and Heard, Bug-Eyed Books, Dan Whitehead, This Is Longer Than I Thought, Sarah Spenlove, Fox Hat, Chris Askham, Laura Crow, Dick Vincent, Mr. Hope, Jessica on Paper, Dr. Sarah, Rick Eads, Maisie Summer, Codlike Comics, Drew Hurd, Asia Alfacy, Victoria Skellen, Nicole Bates.
Yay!
Tiverton High School students launching their first comics.
I'm literally at the end, comics.
Aren't I? I think it depends when you're paid. Also, there was Emma Donnelly, however, she has
hurt herself.
Hurt her leg, so get well soon.
Yes.
With your wonky leg.
Not lacerated, I think you'll find.
Yes.
So,
not good.
No, get well soon.
So, thank you very much for listening. We will be back next episode with our reports from MacPow and some interviews, no doubt.
Oh, I better get some change for the float.
Oh, yeah. That's what you think about right this second.
It did just pop into my mind. I was like, I need some 10p's.
Oh, my God. Right, thank you very much for listening. And we'll be back on the...
We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back.
Shh. We'll be back on... We haven't been drinking. We'll be back on the 1st of May.
No, you got a new coffee machine. You don't know where we are. It's because of the weather. It's like March, April weather.
I quit. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.